All right. We are live. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. I hope everybody is having a great day today, having a great weekend. Let me just make sure everything is upright. Yeah, everything's good. All right, guys. How is everybody doing today? I hope you all are doing just as good as I am. Let me fix my mic here so it's a little bit better. There we go. All right, guys. Welcome in. Welcome in. We're waiting for everybody to file in as we normally do. Good afternoon, Radix. Radix. Guys, remember, I always like to see where you are listening from. So go ahead and throw that up in the chat. I love to see it. My phone is on. Guys, if you are new here, please click that subscribe button. It is the easiest way to support me. If you guys have been around before, then go click that like button and click that comment, or leave a comment. Click that comment. Nice. All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Denver, nice, nice. Atlanta, Detroit, Iceland, France, Omaha, Nebraska, Kazakhstan. Beautiful, everybody. Beautiful. St. Petersburg, Sweden. Da 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 da. Is this a place? Will Coman? I don't know if that's a place. I've never heard of that before. Nice, guys. Nice. Melbourne, Australia. Folsom, California. Middle Tennessee. Moscow, Russia. Hang on. A few more are expected to trickle in. Norway, Ottawa, Canada. Blah, 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 blah. Nice, 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 nice. What's up, Max? How are you doing? Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome in. All right. We will go ahead and get into it. We will start. I'm trying to cut down the empty space at the beginning of each live stream. I see you guys getting upset about that in the comments. I don't know. I kind of like it. I like to kind of build up into the beginning of this. Don said, okay, I'm here. You can begin the show. Well, Don, now that you're here, I will go ahead and begin. Cairo, awesome, guys. Jordan, beautiful. Auckland, New Zealand, beautiful. Nice, guys. Germanistan, nice. All right, here we go. I'm going to just go through some of these questions, and then we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Syrskyi should write the next Art of War. Yes, he should. The recent operations around Pokrovsk, which we are going to talk about today, have been head scratching. I don't know, if, trying to figure out what the goal is, what they're going for. So yeah, that he should write that book because I'm interested in how his brain is working with this current conflict. Radov is confirming RU advance on the east bank of Kupiansk. Yes, he has. That is one of the Russian sources who has confirmed an advance in the city of Kupiansk, which, by the way, we can go ahead and just I love you, Scott. Long time. Nice to see you in here, Tyrone. All right, let's go ahead and just go over to the map, and we can just go over the map just a little bit, talk about some of the happenings, because there are some serious happenings going on now in the across the front line in Ukraine. So basically, in the Zaporozhye, Dnepropetrovsk region, Pokrovsk, Holyai-Polye, the Russians have all but broken through here. The Ukrainians can't hold anything for very long. All of this advancement here by the Russians has happened in the last 3 or 4 days. So the Russians are moving very, very quick through here. And even the geolocations we get from towns like Novoalexandrivka, Yekhiorivka, some of these villages along the Yanchor River right here, show 5, 6, 7 different geolocations with Russians holding up flags. Apparently, in this region, they are suffering from a shortage of UAV operators for the Ukrainians. So there's a much less dense FPV environment down here. And the Russians are enjoying the freedom of movement that they are experiencing. So they're advancing quite fast along this Zaporozhye Dnepropetrovsk border region right here. Moving up to, actually, we're going to do Pokrovsk last because that'll segue into our next thing. in Kupiansk. This is like probably the last major update we have for today. Russian forces have been geolocated in this industrial facility on the eastern bank of Kupiansk, in the eastern part of the city. And then on the western bank of Kupiansk as well, Russian forces have advanced out of the southern edge of the city down to the village of Sadove. And it's unclear if Sadove means this location, which is also titled that, because this location over here is just like 3 or 4 houses. So it's not known if it's more down this direction along the P79 highway, or if it's on the western side of that same highway. But yeah, this pocket is now basically it's so difficult for the Ukrainians to exist in this pocket now. I've been seeing multiple Russian FPV videos striking the crossings, vehicles coming across these. There's like 2 or 3 crossings across the Oskil now that the Ukrainians still have access to, and with this Russian advance, one of them is now gone. So even tighter here, especially this northern pocket, I think is going to close very, very quickly, and then the southern pocket will probably remain open for a little bit until the Ukrainians are forced to retreat. So that is the 2 major updates. Russian forces are also now in Liman. Russian forces are now also likely in Syrskyi. And then, of course, Konstantinivka is developing quite well for the Russians as well. And now, last but not least, we come down to the Pokrovsk salient, boys and girls. And we just saw a fantastic little operation in this area, headed up by I don't want to mess up his name. Head of the GUR, Budanov. He orchestrated a helicopter landing in this field right here. That helicopter landing was, there's a couple of different ideas about why this happened. The most, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to click on that. The most likely, in my opinion, is that they were attempting to drop off a small group of UAV operators to enter into areas like this gas station, this industrial plant here, just to keep this entire area open, right? If you get UAV operators into this area, they can begin striking the Russians on the northern side of the railway here, across the railway, try to reopen up this salient to try to deblock Minhorod. I believe that's what this was. And I don't think that it was necessarily a terrible idea, because there was absolutely no way you were getting these guys in vehicles, right? I'm going to show you guys a couple of different videos that I've posted on Twitter. We're going to do that like right now. And I'm going to show you just like the helicopter landing, the results of that landing, and everything like that. But I'm also going to show you guys a few videos from the Pokrovsk area, in these fields here and in the fields leading into this area. And it's basically like any vehicle that comes within 5 kilometers of Pokrovsk is just taken out. So like any vehicle that comes within this distance of the city is just basically hit. And so you see a lot of infantry moving in. And I'm going to show you vehicles getting struck in these fields, trying to get logistics and rotation into the city of Minhorod. So let's go over to the Twitter, and I will show you guys that. Let me make sure I got it all set up. Okay, so we're going to start off with the helicopter landing. So we're going to start from the very beginning. There were rumors that I think that the Ukrainians were kind of hyping this up. So there were previously rumors that the Ukrainian intelligence services, the GUR, were going to conduct some sort of operation within the Pokrovsk area to help deblock and to just open things up. There's also some like explanations that they did this to like plant a flag for propaganda, which I don't doubt. I mean, we've seen teams like this go and die on spits in Crimea and stuff like that. But I really do think that this operation was more intended to actually deblock the city. Clearly, it's out of immense desperation and just watch the environment that this helicopter is flying into. I think that the Russians were there waiting for them. And in this video, you're going to watch a drone that is waiting on one of the logistics routes in and out on the outside of Pokrovsk. And you're going to see the Black Hawk helicopters of the GUR. So there's one over there, I believe, or maybe not. Here's one. So this is a drone. This is a drone waiting on the road for Ukrainian logistics. And yeah, so there was one helicopter and there's the second helicopter. So already the Russians knew that they were coming in, that the Russians knew that these helicopters were approaching. So already the operation is off to a bad start. You want the helicopter to basically land before anybody even knows the helicopter is coming your direction. Some Russian UAV operator is sitting there watching this screen, waiting for a car to come by or a motorcycle, ATV, somebody on foot, whatever. And you just see helicopters coming into Pokrovsk. And that's going to set off alarm bells immediately, right? There's no helicopters flying in this area. They're obviously coming in low, below radar to perform some sort of mission, an operation, a drop off. And so coming down here, we can see the initial landing of one of the Black Hawk helicopters. It looks like only one was actually able to land. You can see about 11 GUR assets, intelligence officers, whatever you want to call them, getting off of the Black Hawk. The Black Hawk then takes off. You can see them spreading out. And watch the Black Hawk here. You will see tracer fire go by. I think they were shooting at the Black Hawk as it was taking off. Somebody in the fields over here. Let's see that again. Yeah, you can see the tracers over here. So I believe somebody was shooting at that Black Hawk helicopter as it was taking off. And now we are going to watch the Russian perspective of. So we're going to turn down the music just because it's kind of loud, and I would like to do commentary over it. So first and foremost, thermal cameras everywhere, thermal FPV drones. They highlight them red. They're not actually red. They're white like this, but they're highlighting them so you could see. These are the operators that were dropped off. They were individually picked off by FPV operators that were clearly waiting for them to dismount. And then as soon as they entered the surrounding area, they were eliminated. This is just peak desperation. There's nothing good about this operation. It seems like there was no further plan besides just dropping them off and hoping for the best for them. They just left them there. No medevac, no nothing like that. So a terrible waste of manpower, especially well-trained, qualified manpower. And yeah, so that was the operation. And I just wanted to show you guys sort of the environment that they chose to put this. Bye-bye. Sorry, the music is insane on some of these videos. So here you can see the roads outside of Pokrovsk, which I had just talked to you about. These roads are obviously like not super well established. They're dirt, mud sometimes, depending on the weather. Some of them are a little bit more packed, but a lot of them are quite soft. And it's just any vehicle moving in and out is spotted by those drones waiting on the ground, is intercepted and destroyed. And this is why the city is having such a difficult time. And it's why it's become such a problem, is because there's almost no logistics or rotation into Pokrovsk itself. All right. So we're just going to keep watching this, because this is the environment that the Ukrainians decided to send a helicopter into Pokrovsk in, right? The idea that there wasn't just, I mean, even if the Russians had no idea that this helicopter was coming into land, there are 20 to 30 FPVs on every single block in Pokrovsk. It's unbelievable, the density. And you can just see it from this video. But, you know, you could make an argument that this might be over a bunch of days, right? It might not be all at once. So the FPV environment might seem a little bit more dense. I'm going to show you guys one more video of Ukrainians operating in Pokrovsk. I have to leave the volume up for this one so you can hear it. But I just want you guys to listen to the density of FPV drones.
Нема возможності.
Two.
Їбать.
Це пап.
А, свистить, сука.
Нормально?
Як
Да.
прийняли?
Блядь.
Three.
Ох, їбать. Виход.
All targeting this one group of guys. Might be artillery as well. Could be a number of different things. That sounds like drones. 5.
FPV в'їбала?
That one sounded like artillery. 6.
Андрюх, це по нам? Виход ще.
That's, I don't know if that's a bomb or artillery. That was a much bigger blast. And just for your guys' personal like knowledge on this, I'm gonna take us back over to the map now and just kind of explain some of the things that we're watching here. And just so you guys know, all of the video of the FPVs that we were just counting kind of takes place in this area, the northern end of Pokrovsk. It's hard to tell where exactly. It could be in these buildings up here as well. And then the helicopter landing you saw took place here. Some of the guys were hit by FPV drones in this gas station, some in these tree lines here, and then a few of them made it into these first buildings on the outside where they were then targeted by those FPV drones. So just in terms of the success of the operation, very low. Nothing was achieved. It was very public as well. So a very large embarrassment, a hard propaganda thing to steer away from. Even pro-Ukrainian accounts are not really making a ton of sense of it. It's just pure desperation, guys. And I'm going to tell you why they're so desperate is because they know that after this city falls, the current Ukrainian armed forces, lacking the manpower that they are, lacking the UAV operators, are not going to be able to hold back the Russians in this direction. They're going to bypass all of these defensive lines right here. They're going to get into the Dnipropetrovsk, Donetsk area, and it is just going to become a major issue for the AFU. This is something that has long been talked about. And it's a reason why there are Ukrainians currently trapped in Minhorod. There's a reason why the Ukrainians are sending in intelligence officers on a Black Hawk helicopter trying to set up some sort of deblocking operation here and try to push the Russians out of the northern edge of Pokrovsk, guys. This city is vitally important because after this city, what you are going to see is the same thing that you are seeing in the Holyai-Polye Pokrovsk direction, where the Russians are just advancing. You know, let's just see this. I talked about that. The fact that it was the distance. Let's just go right here. 5 kilometers in 3 days, which includes a river crossing and 1, 2, 3 villages. I mean, that's like something we haven't seen in the entirety of this war. And this isn't even, my map is not even fully representative of the current situation because this is like 3 or 4 days behind in this area for sure. So things are moving very fast. And unfortunately for the Ukrainians, you know, they're staring down the barrel of this fire that needs to be put out, or they're going to experience huge issues in the Zaporozhye region. This fire, which is currently smoldering, it's about to go out, and then they're going to have a major fire breakout across this entire defense line here, which runs behind Dobopila. It's not going to be very strong. A lot of Ukrainians are already talking about how it's not prepared. Again, Konstantinivka, the battle for that city has begun, so this is now a fire. Syrskyi is also a fire. Liman is a fire. And then Kupiansk is almost extinguished, but the eastern bank of the Oskil River bridgehead for the Ukrainians is now becoming a fire. So there's just really no solid answers for the Ukrainians. And the best bet they have is to try to do something in this direction. And we've seen that desperation. We've seen them try to do that. So, all right, guys. That is it for my map today, I believe. Maybe we'll bring it up in a little bit. I have a few articles that I wanted to talk about. Oops. I have a few articles that I wanted to talk about, and then we can get into some of this stuff. All right, hold on. Let me see something here. Ba ba ba. Da da da. Let's see. I just had something that oh yeah, that's it. That's right. That's what I wanted to talk about. Okay, so first we are going to talk about the sanctions that were put on 6-7 videos. Nice. All right, we're going to talk about some of the sanctions that were put on Russia, and how I remember I talked about these sanctions not really having the impact that they should have, because they're, nobody's going to follow them on the public side of things. Everybody's going to say, yeah, we're not buying oil from them, this, that, or the other. But behind the scenes, and what's really going on is that, and I'll show you right now, is that the Russians and whoever they're selling oil to, seaborne oil in particular, are currently docking 2 ships together, 2 tankers in the ocean, transferring that sanctioned oil into another ship under another name. And then that ship is able to go into port and avoid those sanctions. So those sneaky Russians are still selling oil to both China and India via the ocean, even though those sanctions have hit them. Might it do some damage long term? It could, but clearly everybody still needs their energy, and they need it at an affordable price, and they're going to get it. And by the way, if for those of you who don't know, the Europeans are buying this oil. They're buying this oil that's being illegally swapped from one ship to another illegally, right? So that's a very goofy thing. And then when we come here, we can see Reuters article, India Oil, which is like their state-owned oil company, buys Russian crude oil from non-sanctioned entities, sources say. Just make a new company. And then when they end up sanctioning that, make a new company and just keep doing that, and just keep selling oil. And everybody's going to keep buying it because they all need it. India needs low energy prices domestically. They need that. And Russian oil is now a huge part of their economy. So, I mean, it's like you're asking a very populous nation to forego their own interests for the sake of the United States and Europe. And that's just not going to happen. And China is even further out of that scope. So yeah, I wanted to just mention that when we're talking about sanctions, they're not working as intended. Clearly, they haven't worked as intended since 2014. And now we are seeing the outcome of using a weapon. Once you use it, everybody knows you have it. Everybody knows how to defend against it. And the Russians did exactly that. They prepared their economy to deal with U.S. sanction regime. And the outcome is a very resilient, independent Russian economy now. So very interesting, to say the least. And again, just kind of shows the lack of options that the West has when it comes to pressuring Russia on Ukraine. One of the ways that the West is talking about pressuring Russia, one of the things that I did not think was going to happen was the delivery of Tomahawk cruise missiles to the Ukrainians. I had said for a long time that I don't think this was going to happen. Same category as the Taurus and JASSM. Now it appears as though the Pentagon has approved the delivery of Tomahawks to Ukraine, saying that it will not impact their own stocks, which I'm calling bullshit on. Just like they said it wouldn't impact their stocks to deliver PAC air defense missiles to Ukraine. It absolutely did. And as we saw with the Israeli 12-day war, that ended up really hurting the Western partners in their ability to defend Israel from Iranian ballistic missiles. So there's still some measures that need to be passed for this to happen. Trump still has to approve it directly, which I don't think is really much of a question. He's shown that he is incapable of saying no to the neocons and everybody, and he's just right along with them. He's openly, doubling down on Ukraine, fully supporting Israel, going for regime change in multiple different locations, including Venezuela. So, him sending these missiles, I think it would be a mistake, a huge mistake on his part. I think it won't change anything about the battlefield. I think that he and the Pentagon know that this won't change anything about the battlefield. What it will do is it will allow the NATO alliance to inflict more damage upon the Russian economy, try to set them back even further. But there's just not enough missiles that can be sent. Russian air defense is going to take out 50-60% of those missiles as they're coming over the border. And the discussions right now is, how are Ukraine going to use these weapons? Apparently there is some sort of conversion kit for Tomahawks to become air-launched cruise missiles fired from the F-16s that Ukraine possesses. So this is a potentiality. Again, I think it's a mistake. I think that this is the first time the Russians have very clearly, Putin in particular, has very clearly came out and made a direct threat towards the use of a specific weapon. Every time in the past, when Leopards were sent, he said it's escalation. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't help U.S. Russian relations. But never was he in a position where he was saying that this was going to have tremendous consequences, that there was going to be even staggering repercussions for the use of Tomahawks on Russian soil. And that ties his hands. And I think that is a very, very important thing that we must understand, is Putin is not a person who will talk out of turn and put himself into a corner where he's forced to act unless he must act. And I believe that if these weapon systems are used on Ukraine, there will have to be some sort of response, probably directly to NATO, because the slope is so slippery at that point, where whatever, I mean, if you're not going to do anything after you've openly said that, then the West is just going to do whatever they want. And there's just basically no idea of consequences at all. So I think Putin has put himself into a corner, rightly so, in this one. And I don't see a way for him to work around being struck by these missiles if they are eventually sent to Ukraine. So yeah. Cool. I hope you all are doing good, guys. If you have questions, you can go ahead and get questions in. We're about half an hour now, so I like to start to see the questions. I have one more article that I want to talk about, I believe. And that's about Venezuela. So if you guys saw like my short that I posted the other day, there is currently a lot of talk about striking Venezuela. A lot of U.S. politicians got onto X and were tweeting things like in Spanish, Viva la Venezuela, whatever. Just all this very it's very cringy and it's very gross, because you're a U.S. politician actively cheering on regime change in a country in South America that has really no. They talk about Trace whatever Agua, the cartel that they're justifying all of this for, but they're not going after the cartels in Mexico. They're not going after the cartels in all of the other South American countries, which also run drugs. They're only going after Venezuela, right? That's interesting. That's something that needs to be paid very close attention to. They've been trying to do this for over a decade, so it has nothing to do with the cartels. That's a fucking joke. That has nothing to do with the reason why we're doing this. If you believe that, you are just the dumbest person around. There is nothing about this that is going to stop drugs from coming into the country. There's nothing about destabilizing the Venezuelan government that is going to promote less refugees, less crisis. You take away the small amount of infrastructure and stability that people have. Where do you think they're going to go for jobs? Do you think that criminal enterprises are going to take a hit from the destabilization of a South American regime? Do you think Colombia, Brazil, all of the neighboring nations are just going to Do you think peace is going to echo through the region now because you got rid of this regime? This is the same stupid bullshit that people were trying to sell in 2003 when we were invading Iraq. Guys, don't fall for this stupid garbage. And yes, I know Iraq and Venezuela are different. Iraq and Afghanistan are different. This is the argument. I was arguing with some people the other day on Twitter and in a space, and we were talking about how they were like, well, you do know that Afghanistan and Venezuela are different, right? I'm like, what? Are you guys stupid as shit? Yes, of course, Afghanistan and Venezuela are different and the contexts are different. Do you trust the U.S. government to do anything right? Do you trust the U.S. government to do a regime change properly, a nation building operation properly? Did you see them do it once throughout the global war on terror? One time. Look at Korea, look at Vietnam, look at every single conflict we've been in, every single aggressive war of empire that the U.S. has conducted. You really believe that Venezuela is going to be the one that they nail? I was talking. It's like when you're talking to people about this and they're defending the Trump administration's actions, they're defending going into Venezuela. First off, they all sound like Marco Rubio. It's unbelievable that these people who voted for Trump, most of them, are actively defending the exact thing they voted for Trump to not do. It's unbelievable. It makes no sense. And there seems to just be this like inability to hypothesize on the fact that maybe the regime change operation doesn't go the way you want it to. Maybe it forces hundreds of thousands of refugees up towards America. What if the entire South American region is destabilized? There's like no off switch for the stupidity, the constant barrage of dumb ideas. And a lot of the people that I was arguing with too have obviously money invested in oil. So they have personal bias involved in this. They want their portfolios to do better. But I cannot believe after everything that you've seen for the last 20, 25, 30 years, that you think the US government is going to do it right. Like, come on. How many lessons need to be learned in blood, in trillions of dollars of national debt? Look at what the global war on terror has done to the US economy. And Venezuela, you think overthrowing the Venezuelan government is going to be a good idea? As the Venezuelan government, as Maduro is openly asking for rapprochement with the United States, telling them that they'll give them a good mineral deal, telling them that they'll work with them in oil, but they don't want that. That's not a part of the agenda right now. So it's just regime change. It's just disgusting. And if you support it, that's fine. You might have the idea that it's going to work out and that it's going to positively impact the drug situation in the United States, whatever. That's fine, but that's still not our responsibility. It is still not our job to go bomb innocent people in countries that have done nothing to the United States. Nothing. And if you want to say that a cartel has done damage to the United States, I got some news for you guys. The CIA established all of those cartels. They built them. So solving the problem that we created, really, at the end of the day, it's just a joke. He's saying he's going to bomb Nigeria now. Yeah, I don't, because of Christians being killed there, which he didn't care when Israelis were killing Christians in Gaza, but he cares when they're killing Christians in Nigeria. Yeah. It's just the Monroe Doctrine. Yeah, bombing Iran and tariff wars on China is definitely the Monroe Doctrine. For sure. Yeah, sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine. That's the Monroe Doctrine, brother. Hell yeah. One piece of the puzzle fitting a doctrine doesn't mean that the administration is following that doctrine. Going after Venezuela does not mean that you're in the Monroe Doctrine. That makes no sense. Trump was a draft dodger. Now he's a warmonger. They all are. What do you mean? But Scott, the government would never do that. Yeah, the government would never kill your wife and, do all sorts of stuff and come onto your property and then kill you, right? That would never happen at Ruby Ridge. That would never happen. They'll never burn a bunch of American citizens alive in a compound in Texas. That would never happen. That would never happen. The government would never lie to you about the Bay of Tonkin. The government would never lie to you about the USS Liberty. The government would never lie to you about the Maine, about every single lie that the government has told in their entire existence. That's not true. They would never do that. They're not all pedophiles on a list that doesn't exist, you guys. What are we thinking? These are the people you are trusting to do a regime change. The people that will benefit monetarily from the situation is who you're expecting to do it right. Delusional. That is the most asinine thing I've ever heard another human being say, especially with the current track record that not only this administration, but every administration who has pushed this continuity of agenda since forever has done, right? It just makes no sense. All right, guys. I think that's everything that I had to talk about. If you guys have some questions, go ahead and get some questions in. I appreciate all of you being in here today. Thank you for making it to this point. Let's see. Scott, thank you for your work. Thank you, Optimistic Future. Good to see you in here again, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's fantastic. All right. You can't blame me. I voted for Jill Stein. I can blame you because you voted at all. See, that's the thing, is if you think that voting does anything, or do you think that wasting your vote on Jill Stein does anything, you're delusional. You're voting for a uniparty system that's controlled by oligarchs. It's the illusion of democracy. So, yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. It's not your fault, but the Jill Stein vote doesn't change anything. Calibrated, do you think Russia screwed up big time by not going in total war after the first push failed? I don't think half-assing the war is smart. I think that what you're looking at is everything in hindsight. I think it's fantastic. I think it's an incredibly important thing to do. But what you have to remember is the decisions that were made over time did not come in a vacuum. They were influenced by the weather, basically, like not literally the weather, but influenced by the tone, the context of the situation. In 2022, the world was completely different than it is now. The relations between the U.S. and Russia were not as poor as they are now. They've degraded heavily. So yeah, it's very easy to say, hey, let's go full war right away, right? But there's a couple of aspects of that you have to think about. First and foremost, the Russian economy was trying to survive the sanctions regime that had just been put on them. They were about to be taken off of SWIFT, right? To commit to that is a lot of money. It's a lot of manpower investment, and it does damage to your economy when your economy is being damaged, right? The Russians needed to mobilize. They didn't have the manpower available for that kind of full-scale war that, like, even what we're seeing now. I mean, there's like 700,000 Russian troops inside of Ukraine, so or involved in the SMO. So that's something that the Russians would not have been able to do in 2022. Also, if we look at the Russian military just in general, I think Ukraine is sort of the best thing that could have happened to the Russian military because first and foremost, to the Russian country itself, first and foremost, it rallied everybody around the flag. It catalyzed the Russian position, the identity of Russia, because it was lost. I mean, after 1991 and then through the 90s and the early 2000s, nobody wanted to be Russian. Everybody wanted to be Western American, you know, everybody wanted to be European. That was like that was where the money was. That's where all the free ideas were, whatever. Like that was the idea. Russia was a depressing place that nobody, I mean, not nobody, but, you know, there was sort of that mindset. That was sort of the zeitgeist inside of Russia. And now you have Russians that are much more proud. They have a war that they are collectively fighting together. They are being collectively attacked by the West. So that's very good for the Russian state. That's extremely good for Vladimir Putin. And then when you're talking about the Russian military in 2022 had terrible accuracy with their Iskanders. We'll just take that as one example, right? You have Iskanders that are not hitting their targets the way that they needed to. Now the Russians can put an Iskander down a chimney if they want, right? That's something that has changed. Drones. where the Ukrainians were doing much better in 2022, 2023 with the grenade drop drones, FPVs eventually developed. The Russians are now dominating in this with fiber optics that can't be interfered with. They have drones all over the road. So the Russian army you're looking at now is not the Russian army of 2022. The Russian economy that you're looking at now was not the Russian economy in 2022. So it's very easy to say, should they have just gone full in? Well, you could make that argument. Maybe that would have worked out. Maybe there would have been a much greater reaction from the West that would have done more damage immediately, and the Russian economy might not have survived. Who knows? Like, I'm not saying that any of these things are certain. It's just really easy to talk like this when you have the hindsight of the situation. You know that negotiations were pointless the entire time. Putin didn't know that. He maybe should have, but Istanbul went pretty decently. The Russians were willing to negotiate. I don't think that it was a bad deal for them to take, and that the West just kept saying no, kept pushing off the negotiations. The Ukrainians obviously are going to say no because that regime is controlled by the West, and they're making money off the deal. So why are they going to stop? What happens when they stop? They're going to die, right? The regime is going to die. So yes, I agree with you. It might have been the right option in hindsight, but in practice, when you put that onto paper, does it work out that way? Not always. And it's also comes with a lot more risk. Good question, though. After Pokrovsk falls, what is the next big target? I will show you. I think the next big target after Pokrovsk falls is Holyai-Polye. I think that this is going to be the next area where you're just basically going to see this entire southern part of this front just kind of collapse in on itself as the Russians cut the highway here. We might see a push from Mirne towards this highway that connects Orikhiv to Holyai-Polye. That would basically cut off logistics into this area. And like I said, the Ukrainians are having major issues with drone operators, and these are just all open fields. So the Russians just can quickly move, outpacing the Ukrainian defenders. So Holyai-Polye, I think, is the next big one. Not necessarily in terms of a city. It's not as important, but location-wise and road connection-wise, it is extremely important. Also, Pokrovsk, I think, I think this entire direction is just going to be developed very heavily. And once the Russians are on the highway behind Propyzhnaya, they're going to just really start causing a lot of chaos, which is going to have major cascading consequences across this entire line, especially after Pokrovsk falls and the Russians begin to push out towards Pavlograd. Additionally, obviously, Liman is going to happen probably before Christmas. We'll see this get captured. Syrskyi as well. But these are smaller and I think have less overall impact on the battlefield. Liman is important, but really what's more important is the fact that the Russians are now reaching up towards this highway, which connects Izum to Slavyansk. Lancets and I believe FPVs are now operating along this highway. So it's becoming a road of death again. And that's just going to complicate logistics along this entire line. We are seeing the snowball, guys. So when you say what's the next big target, I think that there's probably 8 big targets for the Russians. I don't think that the Russians are going to stop at the pace that they're moving, and in fact, increase pace, obviously, as the Ukrainians become weaker. Good question. All right. Don't vote. That's funny. Vote no. When will war come to U.S. soil? Good question, man. We are geographically isolated. So if a war comes here, it will probably be a civil war. Don Zuger is a troll. Then don't buy into him. Who cares? I just don't get why everybody's so upset about trolls. That's what they're trying to do. They're rage baiting you. You remember Drain the Swamp? Now the swamp swallowed MAGA. Yep. As the establishment quite frequently does. Because if you guys think about it, MAGA doesn't exist without the establishment supporting it, right? There has to be some give and take there. They would just destroy that entire side of, or that entire party, whatever. They would just destroy it if it wasn't doing exactly what they wanted to, like we've seen. MAGA just became the Republican Party and the neocons. So, yep. Your cynicism is warranted, Scott. Thank you. I appreciate that. No kings sponsored by Soros and other oligarchs. Yeah, of course. There's no protests you see that aren't sponsored and managed, guys. Again, they just get put down. They just get crushed. Yeah. Voting is for idiots. It's for Americans. Why are Ukrainians still trying in Lysivka and Syrskyi Yar? They are way too far from escaping the pocket because they haven't been given orders to do anything else. What are they supposed to do? Run away and die? They can sit in a hole where they're a little safe, or they can run away and die. Those are the options. And that's not great. Oh, wait, this one. Hi, Scott. Do you think that the Russian response to Tomahawk missiles strikes on Russia could be targeting of NATO officials on foreign NGOs inside of Ukraine? Yes, absolutely. I think immediately the response towards Ukraine will be brutal. I think you're going to see decapitation strikes. Like it just, there has to be something that is like oh shit, that just happened, right? I think that attacking NATO would be very foolish, but I think attacking advisors, locations, known locations inside of Ukraine would be exactly what the Russians would do. Absolutely. I also think the Russians would go after Ukrainian nuclear power plants and just shut off power to the entire country. Good question. Calibrated left from Serbia. What are your thoughts on possible crossing of the Dnieper and Kherson? I predicted it that it was going to happen summer into fall of this year. I still think that it very much could happen, and I don't think my Kherson map is exactly up to date, where the Ukrainians were or the Russians were crossing. So I'm pretty sure the Russians control this entire island here now, which I will be updating here soon. They might control actually a lot of this as well. And then this was the quarantine island. No, that's not the quarantine island. This is the quarantine island right here. Yeah. Where they were talking about the Russians crossing. I think it's very possible. I think that the Russians have done the whole Kherson safari thing here, which is like striking anything that moves within 10 to 20 kilometers of the riverbank, because the Ukrainians just use civilian vehicles for everything. So the Russians took up a less than moral position in this region to just hit everything that moves. And that has created a lot of space for the Russians to begin operating across the river. So I think it is very possible that we will see a Kherson crossing at some point in the near future, just because it will require the Ukrainians to rotate resources to try to stop the PR nightmare that it'll become. Scott, what do you think Russia is sending to Venezuela with the IL-76? It could be air defense munitions for like Buk. It could be advisors. It could be intelligence officers, which would also be advisors, but you know, on a different sort of context there. And then yeah, drones, potentially manpads. I don't know what the agreements are between Venezuela. It could be nothing. It could just be normal air traffic that you would ignore normally, but now that it's coming in is something. But we do see the Russians sending the Iranians a bunch of Yak 130s, I think. So that's happening right now. It does look like the Russians are starting to get their get back for Ukraine against the Americans. It would be interesting to see if China does anything, but I wouldn't count on that. If Russia does almost get all of the Donbass, what then? Occupying Ukrainian-speaking Ukraine will be another Afghanistan. No, it won't. First and foremost, no, it won't. You don't have the geography. First and foremost, the geography is completely different. You don't have jungles, you don't have mountains, you don't have caves, you don't have hiding spaces. You have a few cities, and the FSB is incredibly, incredibly good at weeding out that stuff, especially when it doesn't have the kind of organization that like the SBU gets destroyed and stuff like that. You're going to see potentially like guerrilla stuff, IEDs. Sure, there's going to be some assassinations, whatever, that's expected. But no, you are not going to see anything like Afghanistan. First off, you don't have people that are like already living in a kind of shitty situation. So, when we went into Afghanistan, their lives didn't change all that much. Their houses were still just their houses. It wasn't like they had AC. It wasn't like Afghanistan's a very different place, right? Vietnam is a very different place, especially Vietnam in the 60s and 70s. Ukraine is not like that. Ukraine is not like that. And also the part of Ukraine that I think you're talking about, this part of Ukraine that is more Ukrainian, I guess you could say, Polish, whatever, Hungarian, all that. That area is probably never going to be under Russian control. It could be, but I doubt it. And it's hard to fight a guerrilla war in this field right here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how are you supposed to run an underground cell in this area? Like, it would be the same as running an underground cell inside of, actually, Russia would be much easier because Russia is much more expansive and has those terrain capabilities. Ukraine is just not the place for that. So it's not impossible. We would see probably some separatist stuff, some, infighting stuff, but not to the scale that you're talking about. It would not be like a 20-year occupation thing because they're mostly Russian. Like, that's the thing, is like, people don't understand is they all speak Russian. So after the war's over, after everybody feels betrayed by the US, you think they're really going to want to keep fighting after their regime is gone? No. The only reason they want to fight right now is because they've just been fucking brainwashed and they want to fall on the sword for the United States. You take away people's comfortability, they are not going to want to fight in that manner. It's just not going to happen. And if nobody's paying for it, it's definitely not going to happen. The reason why the Mujahideen fought against the Soviets for so long in Afghanistan was because we were paying for everything, right? That's why. The reason why the Ukrainians are fighting for so long now is because we're paying for everything. But that's not going to continue to happen, especially after Ukraine loses and the regime is displaced. So let's see. What is a troll? If it means a great guy, I am one. A troll is just it's usually considered a mythical creature that lives potentially under bridges. Or if you're talking about like a World of Warcraft sort of troll, you're talking more about like a species of humanoid, intelligent, not stupid. But there's different trolls. There's like cave trolls, there's bridge trolls, there's all sorts of different trolls. Thank you for coming to my troll TED Talk. Thanks, brother. Thank you, Iranian Putin. You did that twice. Did you mean to do that twice? If you didn't mean to do that twice, I can send one of those back to you, my good friend. So Scott is a troll. Yeah. Bro, ask me for one of my riddles. I was once a bridge troll, but then my bridge got hit by Fab 500 and it's just no longer there, so I had to move. David is a troll, but David is a cave troll. He's a fat cave troll. That's the difference. Is like there's an intellectual difference between like a bridge troll who's like sneaky and doing riddles. Yeah, I tell you my riddle, and then you have a cave troll or like a hill troll, which, they can't like get in the sunlight or they turn into stone. They're really dumb. They're like in Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, right? There's the hill trolls. They're really stupid. And then there's the cave troll, which is like really fat and dumb and can't move very well and gets tricked really easily. That's David. There won't be an invasion for Odessa. And that's not how you spell invasion. Envision. Oh, how do you envision? I misread. My bad. You're good. How would you envision the battle for Odessa going? There won't be a battle for Odessa. By the time the Russians reach Odessa, the Ukrainian army will not be in existence. The Ukrainian regime will probably not be in existence. Yeah, it's good to see you in here. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. But how too do you know that David is morbidly obese? Because I've seen a picture of him. What do you mean? You shall not pass. That's a Belrog. That's not a troll. That's a wizard and a Belrog. Durin's Bane, dude. What are we talking about here? He's that's the homie, dude. Durin's Bane is the fucking. Ever when I was a little kid, I was like, that's the guy. He's cool. He kills Gandalf the Grey. And then he comes back as Gandalf the White because Sauron died. It's crazy. I need to watch Lord of the Rings again. All right. All right. Thanks for setting me straight, Scott. No problem. Calibrated. If you were in control of the Russian army, how would you proceed after all of the major frontline cities currently being circled are taken? I would push into the Kharkov region and I would just blitz into the Dnipropetrovsk region because I think that the fighting for the East is the improper way of doing it when you can spread the Ukrainian army out and force them to fight in areas where they do not have properly established defensive lines. I think the Russians have sort of committed to what they're doing and they're just going to keep going in the direction that they're going. The attrition is obviously working out and the Russians have sort of figured out their MO. But I think that doing a much heavier pushes in the periphery would completely rip the front line open and would force Ukraine to basically leave the east, and you wouldn't have to fight for Izum, Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Konstantinivka, Druskivka, all these places. Thank you for your question, my friend. Odessa will fall from within. It's a very strong possibility, my friend. Game of Thrones is better than Lord of the Rings? Okay, first off, Lord of the Rings came out like 25 years ago. So there's a little bit of a difference. Also, Lord of the Rings is a 3-part movie series where Game of Thrones is a multi-season TV show. So they have unlimited time to do more exposition and explaining character development, all of that. Comparing that to Lord of the Rings is ridiculous. They're two completely different things, and Lord of the Rings is still so much better, dude. My light keeps flickering. I don't like that. Disco party. Lord of the Rings is shit. You're shit. You're shit, bro. How's Lord of the Rings shit? Nah. I've watched the director's extended cut. It's like 13 hours in those 3 movies. It's so good. I don't buy it, guys. Even just the cinematography is so good in that. Yeah, Lord of the Rings is just stupid. Well, that's why Tadka, that's why we don't go to your live stream and listen to you talk about movie reviews and TV reviews. Will the Ballistic Brotherhood rejoice to drink beer in Mariupol when the war is over, my man? Hey, listen, if it's safe, I will definitely go to these places because I have basically, I haven't been there, but I know my way around sort of thing. Holy L takes, yeah. Are you talking about me or somebody else? Last season of Game of Thrones was fire. No, Game of Thrones is a good show, guys. I'm not saying it's not a good show. I'm just saying it's so much easier to make a show good because you have so much time, and their budget was also huge to make that show excellent. Lord of the Rings is goated. And it's so good, man. It's so good, especially the Twin Towers. It's so good. But yeah, I get why people don't like it though. I understand, especially because like some of the story things are kind of lame if you're like logically analyzing it. Like, oh, why didn't they just get the Eagles to send them there? Because somebody doesn't understand what those Eagles represent. Whatever. It's just whatever. The book was written by a dude fighting in World War I. I think it was written by Tolkien after. I did think he fought in World War I, but I don't think it was written during. Also, I think that's also Narnia, right? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's all about World War II. right? That one was written about World War II. So I don't know why I brought that up. I just always think about that. Is it U.S. airmen flying the helicopter? No, it's Ukrainian intelligence. Lord of the Rings is nothing compared to Scott's OnlyFans. Bro, stop talking about it. It's sort of like an exclusive thing. Like if everybody knows about it and everybody goes there, it's not going to be what it should be, right? It's just for the few of you that I really appreciate, and I want you to just experience the whole thing. So don't talk about it. Don't bring it up. Is there any chance the Russian with Zab push are able to outflank the fortifications and get to Zab City? Yes, that entire area will just rip open. If the Russians are willing to, literally, what I would do is I would just send out motorcycles. I would be a suicide mission for some of the guys, I know, but you would, if you could get multiple different, basically breakthroughs in different directions and just cause an immense amount of chaos. It would be like the Kharkov offensive against the Russians. It'd be that same sort of thing where you would blitz in, put up a bunch of flags, cause a bunch of chaos, and then there is an additional assault that follows that up to consolidate those positions. That's what I would do. But also, I'm not there. I don't know the tactical situation. I could just be sending a bunch of men to their graves. So, it's different when you're there and you have all of the intel on the ground. The smartest bodybuilder in the world. I'm trying to think about other smart bodybuilders. I'm sure there's somebody smarter than me. I'm absolutely sure there's a smarter bodybuilder than me out there somewhere. I just have to find him and kill him because there can only be one. Highlander! Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's smart. I'm not calling him an idiot. He's definitely smart. I just don't know if he's smarter than me. And that's not me bragging. I just don't know. Mike Menser, he was smart in bodybuilding. I don't think he was like, I don't know. I didn't talk to a lot of these people. So are those motorcycles dirt bikes? Yeah, usually. How many sets of brain exercises? Well, all I do all day is brain exercises, and then I go to the gym after I get tired of that. All right, guys. Thank you. Clip it. If you guys clip anything from my show, do it. Send it to me. I might post it. I'm just lazy and I don't have the time to go through and clip this stuff. So if you guys would do that for me, that would be fantastic. If it makes revenue, I'll give that revenue to you guys too. I just need somebody to fucking clip my shit for me and start clip farming. If anybody's willing to do that, hit me up. This is literally a legitimate job offer. If somebody wants to do some clips for me and make some small edits, I will definitely to have a conversation with you about that. Appreciate it. Can you explain how weakening Russia was going to break the Chinese? The neocon delusions are bonkers. Thanks for the great show. Yeah, just the fact that the Chinese need a reliable energy partner and Russia shares a border. So it's incredibly difficult for the US to disrupt that energy flow without regime change in Russia, without controlling the Russian government, right? Or controlling the Chinese government or being able to leverage against them. And we're just not in that position anymore. So the idea was sanction Russia, collapse the economy, have an internal regime change within Russia, turn it back to 1991 post-Soviet Russia, where, the US privatized everything, brought in oligarchs to control everything, and then disconnect Russia from China. And that didn't happen. And now you have a Russo-Chinese relationship, a Russo-Chinese-Indian relationship, which is weird, that is incredibly strong right now in terms of the economics and the logistics and the resource sharing between these nations. The Chinese are also helping the Russians incredibly with sanctions evasion, basically, for their technology, for all sorts of different things. So yeah, it is very delusional. It was delusional to think that the Russians hadn't done anything since 2014 to strengthen their economy. It wasn't delusional to try to separate Russia and China, but the means and the methods which were employed were the ridiculous part. Thank you for your question. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. That brings us to 1 hour and 3 minutes. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Casual Calibration with your host, of course, myself, the one, the only, the indomitable. Just kidding. If you guys made it this far, thank you so much for listening to my annoying voice. You guys are titans. You are my core base, my core demographic. You are my people. We will rise one day and fight the forces of evil or the forces of good, depending on how I character build in this run through. Might be evil, might not be. We'll see. We'll see. I'm only in my 20s. We'll figure it out. Take care, everybody. Be safe. Have an amazing weekend. Be sure to tune in to my shows. Tune into my shows. Be sure to tune into my live streams and make sure you guys click that notification button so that you are notified if I post other videos. I've been posting a ton of content. I hope you guys are enjoying that content. Have a safe weekend, guys. Be safe. I love you all. Take care. Goodbye.